Hello, everyone. My name is Chris Murphy, and thank you for visiting my channel. This channel is all about empowering agents to master their craft and become better leaders. If you find this content helpful, funny, it's information that you could share with somebody else. Give us a like, a share, a comment, subscribe. Today was pretty interesting. I had this whole huge idea to like really hit the phones hard. I was all prepared. I got into it and spent like 4 or 5 hours talking to insurance companies. So, as I've been writing all this business, it's the first of the month. A lot of this stuff is supposed to issue, on the first and the third. I had some stuff on, later on the 28th or 29th, but you know, I really wasn't getting any deposits, and so I started looking at my pending business. It's getting to that time, see if these things are going to, issue. And as I started calling some insurance companies, one of them said that, a policy was in force in place, but I didn't see any commission. Well, make a long story short, three of the insurance companies had me on paper checks. One of the paper checks, what's that mean is like, I get my commission, they write a check, they put the check in the mail and mail it to me. That takes forever instead of it being an EFT where it just goes straight into, your bank account, right? Well, one of them actually had me all my EFT, the banking information was correct, everything was correct, except for they had it checked off that I was supposed to receive my commissions through paper check. And I said, well, did the contracting say that? Like, how did that happen? I never called in and said, please put me on paper checks. So that was hilarious. And the lady is like, I don't know. She comes back. I was on hold probably for over 25 minutes for her to come back and tell me that they don't really know why this happened. They're going to have to put in a request and see who did that and why they did that. And if there was no reason for it, to take it off. So, a couple of them that were on the paper checks, they've already, sent out the checks. So I can't do nothing about that. I had to, get the form, refill out the form, fax the form over to them. This so I can get on EFT and get, the commissions when they pay me, not waiting, with the snail mail and that whole process. So that was fun. And then while I was, looking into that, I was like, man, I might as well call all the carriers. So I called all my carriers, and three of them had me on paper checks. One of them said they tried to do the banking, but it was wrong. So I had to fill out another form. So I don't know why that happened, but hey, you know what? Long thing is it's taken care of now, and now all the insurance companies are set up for EFT. So that's great there. But then I was like, well, while I'm on the phone with them, I better make sure, because it's one thing to write business. It's amazing to write business. But if you don't get it issued, then it doesn't matter. So if you have a really high submit, but you don't get a lot of things issued, that's what counts. Because that's how you keep the lights on, and that's how the people actually get the policies and get insurance, and how you help families. So, I had with three different things. One was a bad banking account, so I had to call the client and then get her bank account again. And then I had one was I had to rewrite an application because I was under the assumption with American Amicable that you could, if you didn't have that state, you could write the state and then get the license afterwards. But that's not true. You have to be appointed in that state before you actually have to have the state bought and appointed before you can submit the application. So in that case, I'd have to like write the application and then hold it for a couple of days after I buy it, and then do the signing process, call back the client and have them sign it. So that would be the process moving forward. If you, because I get like leads that come in from my Meta account, and sometimes the states are different than what they're supposed to be, or people move, things like that, if they're on the border of the state. So I kind of sometimes don't pay attention, and I'm just helping the client, and then this time I see we're in an application and I'm like, oh man, I don't have that state. So now I got 32 states I had to pick up to. Sweet, I'm so excited. Starting to hire. We have some, new agents coming on board, so that's going to be cool to get involved and really see how. So I got all that information, but here's the thing: have you ever called an insurance company? It's not like they just pick up instantly, right? You're waiting anywhere between 5 and 20 minutes. Every time that you call in, you sit there on the phone. So I felt like I waited just for the insurance companies for almost like hours today. But the good thing is we got a bunch of business issued, and that's bueno, because now those families are helped. And now I'm going to receive some, commissions for me helping those families. And that's another step. Like we always talk about this business, you got to crawl, then you got to walk, then you got to run. And that's really true. Like, you got to learn to get somebody to pick up the phone and have a conversation. And then you got to learn to be able to get them to want to buy a policy. Then you got to learn the application process. And then after you get all that, you got to learn how to get it issued. And you got to follow up to make sure that your policies, because insurance companies really don't, communicate that well. Some do more than others, but for the most part, like, you're not going to know unless you go to your portal or call them, what's going on. They don't send you emails. So you got to stay on top of this stuff. And until you get big, you got to do it. Eventually, you can get to a point where you have your assistant doing all this. But for right now, I am my assistant. So, my day went from like, I'm going to have the best sales day. Like, I'm going to put in all this activity and get a bunch of dials and, do some all calls and just like, blow up the board. I mean, I don't even think I started making phone calls until 3:00. It was ridiculous. And I did get some phone calls in, a couple of follow-ups that, I've been, trying to get, I got a hold of, and hopefully something will pan out with those in the next couple of days. But for the most part, it was a lower, business day on that. Did get some posting done, but for the most part, we worked on, getting business issued and getting all of the insurance carriers that, are going to pay me EFT and not through a check. So the big part here is another part of your business is issued. And towards the first of the month, when you have a lot of business on the books, it is good to call and make sure that everything's in order. If you don't see it approved, and then, after it's approved, you got to make sure the client pays. A lot of times, some companies let you know, and most of them just put it in the portal. So, if there was bad banking or anything like that, you wouldn't know until days and days and days and days and days go by. And then you call in and you're like, oh my gosh, it's the 15th. I had things on the 3rd. Why am I not getting paid? So this way you can be proactive on it and get ahead of the game. And, also then you become more efficient and you get better, and you should have less issues for issuing business. So that was pretty cool. I got an interview with Wave. Wave called me up, and Wave is the dialer that I use. Wave called me up and asked me to have an interview. And so we talked for a little bit, and they said out of all the users that they have, I'm in the top 20 of all users at 86% connection rate. So 86% of the time that I make a phone call, it actually connects through, which is really high. To me, I'm like, that's so low, but I guess in their eyes, that's above board. So they were just asking me like what I do on a daily basis, what's my daily practice is, and then we kind of went through how I had my dialer set up. And one of the biggest things, best practices, is that a lead comes in, you stop what you're doing and call it. Wherever you're in the progression of calling your leads, a new one comes in to your portal. I have my phone on, lead gen, so I can see when it comes in, even if I'm, on the computer. I stop the dialer and I call that lead immediately, right? If I have an AI bot inside my dialer, inside my CRM. So if it's texting and someone's communicating, like get involved, take over. Thirdly, is if somebody books appointment, you get a notification on your phone from lead gen, immediately call them. And that's how I sold one of the policies. I've done it 5 times, and it happened once where I immediately call them as soon as they book the appointment, and I say, "Hey, Charlene, it's Chris. I see that you booked an appointment with me tomorrow at 5 o'clock, but I actually had a couple cancellations right now. You got a few moments we can knock this out?" And they say, "Oh, nope," or they say, "Yeah." And the one lady said, "Yeah," and it ended up being a sale. So 1 out of 5 times. So those are some best practices. I have spam on all mine. I have a number for every ever state. I have Trust Hub. So, I don't send out any voicemails. I have a 2-hour nuisance protection. And then I rotate between like more progression dialing or just single dialing. So it was just really cool that, that I was in the top 20 of users at 86%. And it was cool to just kind of like go through and explain and let them see kind of into my dialer and how I use it. Plus, we noticed that I had, what was it, over 5,000 dials for the month. Anyways, that's a lot of dials. So definitely using the dialer. So that was cool. And excited for, tomorrow we're going to get at it and really get some dials in. Got all the other stupid stuff. Well, I shouldn't say stupid stuff. I should say I got all the other important stuff out of the way. And now it's back to getting more, policies on the books so more families we can help.